Okay guys, time to talk about the Odyssey. Before I start, I kind of need to preference where I'm coming from with this interpretation, this opinion on this movie, because I saw it yesterday and I did think it was a good movie. I thought that it was entertaining. I thought that cinematically it was very good. There's a lot of things that I have an issue with in this movie. Now, I have read the Odyssey. I've read the Odyssey multiple times. I have annotated versions of it. I've read multiple different translations. However, mind you, it has been a while. So my argument here is not necessarily from a purist standpoint. I don't want the movie adaptation to be a perfect, like, chapter by chapter adaptation. I don't think that that's necessary for a good adaptation. So I'm not looking for the movie to have every detail of the Odyssey. However, I am also Hellenic, which means this is my religion. The Greek gods, the pantheon, all of that is my shit. And I have been worshiping the Greek gods for many years now. I started when I was like 16. You know, me and Apollo have been going for quite a while. And therefore, I think a lot about these gods. I think a lot about these stories. I read a lot about it, you know. It's something just on my mind a lot. So when I'm watching this movie, obviously, it's a lot of things that I've already thought about, and I have a lot of takes on sort of specific parts of the movie. I'm not going to be pulling it apart per se. However, there are parts where I'm like, I don't think that was the best choice. And I can respect a creative decision. However, some of these felt a little bit less like a creative decision and more of a mistake. So I'm going to start with what kind of frustrated me the most with this movie was the fact that the gods in this movie were kind of implied to not be real. Throughout the movie, there's so many points where it's almost as if the characters are being portrayed as overreacting because of their fear of the gods. We also only see one of the gods like actually materialized, and it's Athena. And Athena only shows up to Odysseus, and once again is kind of portrayed like she's fake. It's kind of portrayed like it's a figment of Odysseus's imagination, especially because she takes on the form of a priestess that he killed during the sack of Troy. So it's almost like a materialization of his, like, grief and guilt, right? We don't even know there if Athena is actually real or if Odysseus is just fucking losing it. What's implied is that the gods aren't real. And I don't love that because I think that the gods are crucial to this story. I mean, how does the war in Troy start? It starts between Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena about who's the most beautiful, and then obviously Helen gets involved, blah 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 blah. I'm not explaining all of that. So it starts with the gods, and then throughout the Odyssey, the gods appear many times. Athena is a main character in the Odyssey. Zeus, he shows up, he's pretty important there. Apollo, he's also pretty important in there. Who else? Poseidon, pretty important in there. There's many gods that really show up and are crucial to the development of the story and why things happen. Odysseus is not just some regular man, you know? He has a matron, which is Athena. He is a dedicated warrior of Athena. Athena has chosen him as well because he is, as per Epic the Musical, a warrior of the mind, you know? He thinks, he's smart. So the gods are really important, but every single time where the gods should show up or the gods should be really important to the story, it's instead kind of made to just be like coincidence. Odysseus's crew ends up on this island. There's this Cyclops. They get trapped in his cave, whatever. All of that's happening. And if you know nothing about Greek mythology, the Cyclopses are the children of Poseidon, which Odysseus doesn't seem to be aware of, both in the book as well as in the movie, and he harms the Cyclops. He stabs the Cyclops in the eye, and of course this is in part because they're trying to escape. However, in the movie, Odysseus just randomly shoots that fucker in the eye for no reason, really. Like, I guess he's just mad that he killed his friends, but, like, I don't know. It's a stupid decision. And then, as they're getting on the boat, Odysseus' crew is like, we're fucked now. That's Poseidon's child. We just harmed Poseidon's child. And we need to get across the sea. We're fucked. We're so fucked. And then Odysseus, in his monologue, is pretty much like, the crew is convinced we're cursed now. Yeah! You should fucking be convinced. You just stabbed Poseidon's infant child in the eye. Obviously, he's gonna come after you. But it's made to be almost like the crew is paranoid. And then we see these storms happening, right? And it's still kind of enforced that the crew is paranoid and that this is just nature at it again, that it's not necessarily Poseidon. We don't see Poseidon, which is fine. That can be done. However, it's very much said throughout the film that Poseidon's not quite real, that this is just storm, that this is just people's paranoia, blah, 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 which is not true and really ruins a large portion of the plot of the Odyssey. I have later moments where they end up on Apollo's island. There's the sacred cattle. Odysseus' crew is desperate, blah, blah, blah. Despite the fact that he's warned them, they eat one of the cattle. They finally get off the island and they get fucked in the middle of a storm, right? Because now they have Poseidon after him, and now they have Zeus after them, because the cattle is Apollo's cattle. Apollo is Zeus's son. So Zeus is gonna kill them. But once again, it's made to seem almost like a natural coincidence. Oh, how does Zeus kill them? A lightning bolt to the boat. So that can just be interpreted as an accident storm, you know? It's not necessarily Zeus, as in the same way it's not necessarily Poseidon throughout all of it, you know? And then Athena, she disappears because it's framed as Odysseus imagining her. Like, she isn't actually real and Odysseus is losing it. So I don't know why they've decided that the gods aren't real. And it doesn't make sense because Cyclopses, they're real. Circe, who is a god, by the way, real. Calypso, who is also a god, by the way, real. We see Charybdis, we see Scylla, we see all of these monsters that are linked to the gods, and yet consistently throughout the film, it's framed as if the gods aren't actually real. It doesn't make sense with the story, because the gods are incredibly important to the plot of the Odyssey, and without them, it doesn't really make all that much sense. I'm not entirely sure how they're supposed to explain the Cyclopses, all the monsters they fall in, how this war started, like, genuinely every single point of this movie, how any of that works without the gods. How does Odysseus get off Calypso's island? Well, in the movie, he just builds a raft and floats. No godly interference. Hermes, he's nowhere to be seen throughout any of this movie. How do they defeat Calypso? Not Calypso. Circe? Well, he just kind of convinces Circe to leave his crew alone. Huh? So that was one of my bigger issues with this film. Moving forward with complaints that I hopefully think more people will understand is the depiction of women in this film. We have, I'd say like 4 women that are really important in this. We have Helen of Troy, who is very briefly in this, but I can understand that. We have Penelope, the Queen of Ithaca, and then we have Circe and Calypso, who are both goddesses, mind you. I'm going to start with my issue with the depiction of Circe. Christopher Nolan did better than he could have done. There are ways that he could have gone with Calypso and Circe that would have been much more frustrating and also accurate to the Odyssey. The Odyssey does not portray these women in a very kind way, and I think we can acknowledge in part because of the time that this was written, you know? However, Circe, if you don't really know much about her, she is a goddess and she is also a witch. She has magic, which is obviously important, but Circe has been wronged by men. She lives on her island and Odysseus's crew shows up, invades her home without Odysseus, and she, as a god and also as a woman, can feel the intentions of the crew, which is, very frankly, to rape her. Circe knows this, so she turns them into pigs because that is what they are to her. That is what she sees in them when they come. And that is justified. It's entirely justified because Odysseus and his crew are objectively horrible. Maybe not Odysseus in some ways, but his crew, yes. In the movie, what happens is they show up at her house, she feeds them, and then she turns them into pigs. And it almost makes it seem like she is overreacting. There is no sense of danger to Cersei when the crew is there. It feels like Cersei is in control at all times, which I do understand in part because she is a god. But the whole point here is that these men have intention to harm women. And likely they have done it before. Think of the time period. They're warriors. They sacked Troy. What were they likely doing during the sacking of Troy? Abusing women. And then they go to this island. They haven't seen women in a very long time. They come across a house with one woman and their captain's not with them. So they have an opportunity to harm Cersei. However, in the film, you don't feel that. You don't feel that there is this threat to her. You don't feel as though the crew has any threat to women, which is weird because there's a very large plot point here of Odysseus being like, wow, my crew is horrible. And he's remembering the sack of Troy and thinking about how awful these men that he's desperately trying to protect truly are. And instead of really showing any of their cruelty and violence, they just show kind of the basic slaughter that you would expect with war, despite the fact that the whole point is supposed to be that it's more than that. I gotta plug her in. And by plug her in, I mean plug myself in. Speaking of this, I'm not saying here that I would like to see violence against women portrayed in this film. In general, I'm not a big fan of just watching women get sexually assaulted on screen. Not a fan of that. However, there are ways to more intentionally depict the cruelty, the intention of these men, right? And they don't do that. And it ends up just making Cersei look like a bitter, broken woman who reacts without enough evidence. Her impact feels diminished too. And it also undermines Odysseus as a character, because the point here is that Odysseus convinces Cersei to not kill or keep his men as pigs, and then she helps them. She tells them where to go to meet the prophet in the underworld. And she does that because she senses in Odysseus something different from his men. He doesn't have that same violence and that same cruelty for women. He has his wife and he loves his wife and he only wants to get to his wife. His driving factor is his desperation for Penelope, to get back home to Penelope. So obviously he's not wanting the same thing that his men are, which is to harm these women. And that's not necessarily saying that, Odysseus is woke. Odysseus loves women. No, but that is kind of how it goes down, right? So I don't love the way Cersei was depicted with that because it just feels kind of disrespectful to her character, and I think just the intention of the men were not shown well, and she comes off as a very different character than who she is. Then we have Calypso, who is passive. She's nothing. She's no one. We don't even get an explanation of who is this lady, why is she on this island, why is Odysseus on this island. There's nothing. There's no explanation of anything. You kind of get the idea that it's hard to escape the island, but ultimately Odysseus just builds a raft and leaves. So clearly it's not that fucking hard to get off this island. And it's a kinder adaptation for Calypso, which, as I said, I appreciate. I appreciate that these women weren't turned into pure villains, because that's typically how it goes. However, also, they don't feel fully formed. Where are their drive? What's their motivation? Why are they doing these things? We don't fucking know. If you know nothing about the Odyssey, you're gonna be confused as fuck, because who the hell is this woman on this island? And why is Odysseus on this island? And why won't she let Odysseus leave this island? Except it's not even that she won't let him leave the island. It's kind of framed as if it was Odysseus's choice, question mark? I don't know, because she's like, well, you wanted the lotus flowers so bad, so you weren't ready to leave. And Odysseus is like, yeah, but now I am. This is not how this goes. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So Calypso, irrelevant. Cersei, she's not depicted as anything that relevant either. She's just a sad, broken, tormented woman on an island. And low-key, so is Calypso. So both of those women are just done dirty. Penelope, on the other hand, I don't think it was poorly done. I think that Anne Hathaway did a good job with what she had. I don't think that what she had was that good. Controversial. I think Christopher Nolan doesn't understand Penelope very well. He almost made her into someone who was thirsty for power. You know, there's like this scene that people have been really praising of Penelope being like, well, I've sat on this empty throne for 20 years, but like that doesn't matter because I'm not a man. I do like that general point, sure. Doesn't really make sense for Penelope. Because Penelope's motivation is not to rule. Penelope doesn't want to rule. Penelope, just like her husband, is desperate to find each other again. Both of their motivations are entirely each other. There is this intense romance in this book because both of them are so loyal to each other and so desperately want to be rekindled with another because of the struggles they face without each other. They feel empty. They feel like their other half is gone, you know? So this kind of like interpretation of Penelope where she almost wants the throne, where she's almost mad that she can't rule, is weird because that's not the character's motivation at all. It's not the motivation at all. Neither Odysseus or Penelope at this point are desperate to rule. They're desperate to be reunited. They're desperate to have their family, and their family comes along with the throne. It's a responsibility that they almost begrudgingly accept. It is not something that they are after. They are not power hungry. That is not their character, you know? That is Antinous' character. He's the one who wants the throne. Penelope is not fighting him for the throne. Penelope is fighting for her freedom and for her safety from Antinous and from the suitors. And part of that is that safety will come with the return of her husband. So I wasn't a huge fan of any of the women, how they were done in this film. I think it could have been way worse, but I don't think it was that good. Speaking of just kind of depictions of characters, I guess, I think that Tom Holland did the best, actually. I think that Telemachus was one of the more believable characters. Telemachus felt like Telemachus. He felt like a young prince that was very lost, that was trying to sort of find himself, find his confidence, and figure out what to do next. He felt sort of naive, which I think is accurate to who he is. He wants to prove himself. He isn't as strong as he wishes he was, and he's heard all these tales about how strong his father is, and he doesn't know how to become that, and he thinks he does have to become that. And I think Tom Holland did a good job with him. I think that Telemachus was well written, and when I was watching it, you know, I wasn't taken out of the story when I was watching Tom Holland. His depiction of Telemachus felt like I was in the Odyssey, like it was the Greek tale of the Odyssey. And I do like that Christopher Nolan focused on Telemachus quite a bit, because throughout the book of the Odyssey, it's a lot of Telemachus. It's Telemachus figuring out what's happened to Odysseus. It's Telemachus learning his father's story, his father's journey. It's not always Odysseus telling you what's happening. It's often Telemachus finding out what happened. So I thought Tom Holland, good job. I liked your depiction. I think you did a good job. Christopher Nolan, I think you wrote that well. I think you did that well. It's a lot of kind of small things where I'm more so confused than I am angry. There was nothing where I was like, that's a bad decision. It was just like, huh? Why'd you do that? Like, I don't quite get it, you know? I don't quite get what you were going for, and I don't quite think the points that was trying to be made throughout this movie were successful. I think that one of the big points of this film is supposed to be Odysseus realizing that him and his crew are villains, that they are awful, that what they have done is horrendous, and Odysseus recognizing that the crew of men that he is so intensely loyal to are not good people. And that is like a main plot point, but everything else that happens around it doesn't reinforce that idea. It's something that is said, not seen. I think there were a lot of things that needed to happen that didn't happen. I think the removal of the gods really ruined a lot of things. I think that there was really well done horror elements in this, but not where it needed to be. The elements that were truly monstrous, terrifying, horrifying was ultimately victims of Odysseus and his crew. What was terrifying? The Cyclops was pretty terrifying. The Cyclops, mind you, is an infant. He's an infant that lives on this island and takes care of his sheep. He is not some monster. They sneak into his home and start killing his fucking sheep. But he is depicted as something terrifying, eating the crew. Like, it's something monstrous. Who else is depicted as terrifying? Cersei. When she's turning the men into pigs, that is some really good fucking horror right there. It's grotesque, it's beautiful, it's very well done. But the point here isn't that Cersei's terrifying, the point here is that Odysseus' crew is terrifying. But we never see that cruelty and that violence from Odysseus and his crew. They're still idealized, romanticized, turned into these heroes, while simultaneously trying to make a point about how bad they are. You need to be able to show who they really are, what they really are. We see these battle scenes, and it's just like general war. It doesn't feel targeted, it doesn't feel cruel, it doesn't feel intentional, it just feels like what they have to do. Also, just because so many things happen in the Odyssey, it feels rushed. I don't know how they managed to make a 3-hour-long movie feel rushed, but they did, because it's just like, movie starts, we're at Troy. Like, next scene, we're at an island now, and there's giants chasing us. Next scene, we've just met Cersei. Next scene, like, we're at Calypso's island. Next scene, like, it's just like back to back to back to back to back. And also, time passing isn't shown. Once again, it's implied. We're told it's been 7 years that Odysseus has been trapped on Calypso's island. We don't see that it's been 7 years. We don't even see him showing up at the island. We just see him 7 years later finally remembering that he, has a life outside of this island. So, because everything happens in rapid succession, back to back, and because time passing is only ever told, not shown, the impact of Odysseus's return to Ithaca does not feel as strong. It doesn't feel like he's been gone for 20 years. It feels like he's been gone for 5 months and just a whole lot of shit happened, because we don't see any of the time passage. And I think that that's ultimately what fucked this movie over, is that everything was told to you, nothing was shown to you. And yet, somehow still, they also didn't tell us enough. Because once again, we get to Calypso's island. If you haven't read the books, if you know nothing about the Odyssey, if you're not a Greek mythology person, who the fuck is Calypso? What's she doing on this island? What's this island about? Why is Odysseus there for 7 years? We don't really know. It's not even said that, you can't escape the island, that's, part of it. It's a magical, prison invented by the gods for Calypso. And then Odysseus ends up there. He can't fucking get out. Instead, it's just he really wanted to eat those lotus flowers and he forgot. Actually, I have one more thing to add. Matt Damon cannot play Odysseus. His version of Odysseus is so bland. Odysseus is an incredible character. He is viciously smart. He is cruel at times. He is guilt-ridden. He is tortured. He is desperate for home. He's a lot of things. And Matt Damon's version of Odysseus, he is a sad, guilt-ridden man, and he's dumb. Every single chance they had to show how smart Odysseus is, they didn't. One of the classic examples is when they're fighting the Cyclops in the books. The Cyclops is like, "Who are you?" or something. I don't know, it's been a while since I read the books. And then Odysseus tells him that his name is Nobody. Because then when the Cyclops calls out for help, he says, "Nobody is hurting me." And all the other Cyclopses are like, "Rah, rah, whatever, blah, blah, blah." So that's a point that's supposed to show, how cunning he is. The only, plot that is shown where Odysseus is, smart, and even then I don't think it's insane, it's the Trojan horse. It's literally the Trojan horse. He's like, "Yeah, well, I came up with this idea that we sneak into the city via horse." And that's it. Every single other decision he makes is just he's just doing shit, He's like, let's go that way instead of following Agamemnon, or I don't know how to say his name properly. And then he's like, "Oh, look, there happens to be an island there. Let's go to that one." Every single thing that he does, it's just kind of on a whim. There's no strategy, which is kind of stupid when his matron is the goddess of war strategy. Why is he not smart? And neither is he particularly terrifying. He doesn't even kill the suitors at the end. He kills some of the suitors, sure, but he doesn't even kill all the suitors. And also he leaves. Like, the end of the movie is him and Penelope going off into exile and Telemachus is now king. Also, he didn't kill all the suitors, so there's still all these people that want to take Telemachus' throne. What? This isn't helpful. He's not vicious, he's not terrifying. He's not even properly, like, guilt-ridden and sad. Like, it's just, his emotions, flat as hell. This guy, I could not take Matt Damon seriously. Every time I looked at him, you know who I saw? I saw fucking Matt Damon. I did not see Odysseus of Ithaca. There's just no emotional depth. There's nothing. He's not anything. He's just neutral. Love the practical effects above CGI and, like, AI. I think that that's really important in the age that we're in for media and film right now. And I think it looks really good because of that. Like, it feels like a very well made movie, and it doesn't look artificial. Like, the visuals didn't take me out of it at all, which I liked. But yeah, weird depiction of literally every character in this book. Like, just all of the characters were depicted strangely. This was probably the most not organized rant I could have gone on. I think that's it. This has been 30 minutes of me talking to a camera. Yeah. Good movie, though. It was entertaining.